You're tuned in for the Power and Energy news channel ESI Africa. For today's episode, we are broadcasting from Enlit Africa, and in the studio with me I have Dawid Pieterse, who is the Chief of Party, Power Africa's East Africa Energy Program and RTI International representative. Welcome to the studio, Dawid.
Good afternoon, nice to be here.
All right, my first question is basically around revenue protection. So why is utility revenue management important in accelerating electrification rates in Africa?
If you look at the access rate, the existing access rate in Africa, it is estimated that there's between 600 and 700 million people without access to modern energy services. And that will only be done or achieved, the electrification of those people, if energies are doing their part, utilities are doing their part. So we all know that the flavor of the week, so to speak, is off-grid energy and sexy mini-grids and things like that. But ultimately you need these old utilities to step up, improve their game, and be part of this energy transition. The work that I do in East Africa is with many of the utilities, so well-known names like TANESCO and ZECO, Kenya Power, Ethiopia Electricity, etc. And the work that we do with these utilities is exactly that, to support them to be able to reduce losses, to improve their revenue, and that enables them to invest more money into their networks, into their connections, etc., to be able to achieve the goal of universal access by 2030. So the work that we do is, as I mentioned, with these utilities, and it's typically to help them to improve their performance, to improve their planning, to advocate for cost-reflective tariffs, as well as improving their human capacity to be able to manage this work.
I think definitely you're doing a good job, because there are utilities out there that have been announcing that they are reducing their tariffs to be cost reflective, so that they can basically be businesses that are financially viable, as well as that customers can then pay for the electricity that they're getting.
Yeah, I think that's the key. Customers, what we've seen, of course, customers are willing to pay for electricity. It needs to be fair and it needs to be cost reflective, of course. But also on the utility side, a paying customer enables you to do that, the maintenance that's needed on the networks, the expansion that's needed on your networks, to be able to connect more customers. And I'm a utilities guy, so maybe a little bit biased. But a well-functioning utility enables so many other things, of course. It also enables the renewable energy generation at scale. So if you look at the problem that we're facing, as I mentioned, 700 million people without access, you need an industrial scale solution for that. And it's not to exclude the off-grid sector or whatever. I think ultimately it will need to be a combination of the two, both on and off-grid technologies, to be able to tackle this problem. And it is a big problem. I mean, we know about the benefits that electrification brings, and that is my life task, so to speak, is to help with that, of course.
So we've also seen, especially in East Africa, where an off-grid IPP developer is now working with a utility. That is a model that we can look at going forward. But how does that then impact on the utilities' cash flow?
Look, one of the challenges that the utilities face is obviously these customers going off-grid. So they basically use the grid as the backup. They do their own generation, so to speak, the customer becomes the competitor of the utility. On the one hand, it's bad for the utility because they're losing some of their best customers. It's normally renewable energies are getting cheaper, but it's still a lot of money to invest. And of course, a strong customer that can invest in something like that would go off-grid. So the utility would miss out on the opportunity to build those customers and get the energy sales from them. On the other hand, it actually helps the utility as well. Many of the utilities in the region struggle with the proper supply of generation and energy. So having some of your customers do that actually helps the utility. It gives them an opportunity to maybe supply to their neighbors or something. I know in some cases, like big mines as an example, they also service the communities around them, which is also a good thing. Obviously, chasing that access, that 700 million that we're talking about.
Right. And we've spoken about the cash flow and how these utilities can basically brand themselves as being customer-centric in understanding what their customers need and then delivering that. But what about the future of utilities and their business model? And for instance, what role does metering play in that?
The utility business is very easy, by the way. There's only two things that you need to worry about. The one is customers and the other one is energy. If the utility is not customer-centric, and to be honest, many of the utilities struggle with that because they come as old state-owned entities where customer services was like an afterthought. It should actually be part and parcel of their vision going forward, is to service that customer in the best possible way. So that's on the one hand. On the other hand, the energy part, and that's where your question regarding the metering comes in. The utility need to understand exactly where the energy goes. So they buy it from whoever, the transmission or the generation company, and that gets distributed throughout their networks up to their end customers. If every one of those customers are not metered, there's an uncertainty in that system. And obviously then there's an opportunity for high losses, and that impacts the revenue and the financial viability of these utilities. So metering is key. As I said in the beginning, it's one of the areas where my program focuses on as well, is on the technology. We are technology agnostic, but we know that good solutions would include a typical advanced metering system, so that you can manage the energy flow through the network. And it's not only the end customer that's metered. You also need to measure upstream, of course, through your transformers, feeders, substations, etc., to be able to target areas where you are losing energy, to have some intervention there, and also to make sure that whatever you bring into your system actually gets sold to the end customer. Ideally, you would have zero losses, just the technical losses on the system, but we know that's not the reality at this stage.
So as a last question to you, what is your advice to a utility that wants to future-proof itself?
I think getting back to my it's called the PT squared methodology. You need to focus on the performance of the utility. You need to fix the, let's say, the system supporting your business case. You need to make sure that your metering, your billing, your collection, etc. is in place. And that takes a lot of effort, of course, to increase that performance. The second part is the tariff. You need to have a cost-reflective tariff. Somebody needs to pay for the energy, and ideally it should be the end customer. If there is some sort of subsidization happening, like with, let's say, poorer communities, it needs to be properly ring-fenced and properly understood who's paying for the energy, because somebody is paying for it, by the way. Planning, of course, is another area where utilities need to focus. It's only when you have a longer term vision and a longer term plan that you know where that utility is going and how you can supply your customers in future. So that's another area. And then the last one is in technology. If you look at this floor today, I mean, it's wonderful to see all these technology suppliers. And I think utilities need to embrace that as well, to look at some solutions that are fit for Africa, of course. Not all technologies are, by the way, but there's many areas where they can leapfrog some of the existing problems that they've got by just implementing some of the newer technologies. And obviously metering is a really good example of that.
As you say, just find the right solution that fits your utility.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us, Dawid.
Good. Thanks for having me as well. Thank
You're
you.
welcome. And thank you for watching. Like, share and subscribe to ESI Africa for more of this type of content.